Hey kids, welcome back to some more science. Science is cool. We are continuing our discussion on insects. During our last lesson, we learned about bees, wasps, and hornets. We learned how those critters are social insects, meaning they live in a big group. The hives of those groups have queens, drones, and workers. The purpose of the queen was to lay eggs. The purpose of the drones was to mate with the queen to make the babies. Those were the boys. And the purpose of the workers was to kind of do everything else. Well, this insect we're going to talk about this week also lives in a group and also has queens, drones, and workers. But it's not a bee, it's an ant. Ants are so cool and we see them like everywhere. But did you ever stop and really look at an anthill? Thousands and thousands and thousands of ants work together to create their mound. What we see on the top of the earth is only a very small part of what's going on underneath the ground. So today in this lesson, we are going to take a close-up look at ants. I have a book to read you, a video to show you, and then we get to make an anthill cookie and an anthill hat. So let's get started learning about ants. Ants are cool, and science is cool. Ants, like bees, are an insect, meaning, like bees, they have 6 legs, they have antennae, they have 3 segments to their bodies. The babies don't look anything like the adult. They go through that process where they start off as an egg, and then a larva, and then they pupate, and then they finally turn into the grown-up. Some ants have wings, not all. I mean, all bees, wasps, and hornets have wings. Some ants do. We'll talk about why that is. And like bees, wasps, and hornets, ants are a very social insect. They don't live by themselves. Now, the group of bees, wasps, and hornets, they live in a hive. Ants live in a colony. Now, when you're walking through the grass and you see a large pile of sand, or if you're on the sidewalk and you see sand, that's usually your ants making that anthill. What you see on the top is a very small part of what's going on underneath. I have a video here that's going to talk all about ants and the ant colony. Let's take a look.
Hello, welcome back to tinygrads.com. I'm Miss Katie, and today we're going to do a little myrmecology. Now you might be wondering, Miss Katie, just what exactly is myrmecology? Well, to answer that excellent question, we need to get closer to the ground. Myrmecology is the study of ants. Scientists estimate there are 1.5 million ants per every person on Earth. That means there are approximately 10 quadrillion 500 trillion ants on the planet. Amazing! They live on every continent except for, interestingly enough, Antarctica. It's just far too cold for them to survive there. Ants live in groups called colonies. Some colonies are small with only 20 or 30 ants, but other colonies can have millions. Most of the ants you see are called worker ants. They each have special jobs to help take care of the colony. Some gather the food, some build up the anthills, some protect the queen. The queen ants are the only ants in the colony that can lay eggs. While most ants have a lifespan of less than 60 days, some queens can live up to 20 years. Have you ever seen a long line of ants running back and forth from one place to another? They're not exercising, but what they are doing is quite amazing. One ant will leave the colony and go out scouting for food. When it finds it, it eats a little bit, and then takes some back for the rest of the colony. While it's hurrying back home, it leaves behind an invisible trail of chemicals called pheromones. While we can't detect pheromones, ants can smell it, and they can follow that smelly trail all the way back to the food. And they continue to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until all the food is gone. Amazing! Did you know that ants don't have ears? They hear by sensing vibrations in the ground through all 6 of their feet. And while they don't have ears, they do have eyes. Although they can't see very well, and some ants can't even see anything at all. Instead, they use their antennae to smell and to feel their way around. Ants don't chew their food like we do. Instead, they suck the juice out of the food and leave the rest behind. Can you imagine if we had to suck the juice out of a potato? Ants have not just one, but two stomachs. One is used for their own food. The second is used to store food for the other ants back home. That's nice of them, don't you think? Do you know what else is amazing about ants? They don't have lungs. Now you might be wondering, Miss Katie, just how do ants breathe without lungs? That's another excellent question. Ants' bodies are covered with tiny little holes. The oxygen comes in through the holes, and the carbon dioxide goes out. No lungs required. But the most amazing ant fact of all, ants can carry up to 20 times their own weight. If you or I could do that, we could lift cars over our heads. That's amazingly amazing. Every ant is an amazing superhero with super strength. Well, I hope you enjoyed being a myrmecologist with me today and learning some amazing facts about ants.
So those were some pretty cool ant facts. I told you I was going to talk about when ants have wings, because normally when you're looking at ants, they don't have wings, but sometimes they do. Every spring and every fall, the ants, there's so many of them in there, it's time to start a new colony. The way that happens is a fertile female, in other words, a female that can have babies, and a male that can make the babies, grow wings. Like, cool. And off they fly, a whole bunch of them, to start a new colony. A lot of those probably get eaten by birds and frogs and turtles and whatever else eats ants, so not all of them make it someplace. But if they do, if that fertile couple, the ones that can make the babies, make it to a new spot, they can start a new colony. Once the queen mates and starts to be a queen, her wings like fall off or something. She no longer needs those wings, which is why when you have an ant colony with a queen inside already living there, she doesn't have those wings anymore. Now, the boy ants don't lose their wings, but they also don't live very long, so I guess it's a moot point. The new boys don't have the wings. And that's why some ants have wings. If you see winged ants, it means that they're on the lookout to start a new colony. And now, I have a fun little book about an ant on a railroad track that I'd like to read to you.
I Saw an Ant on a Railroad Track by Joshua Prince, illustrated by Mackie Pemington. Well, I saw an ant on the railroad track. The rail was bright and the ant was black. He was walking along, tickety-tack. That's the sound of an ant on a railroad track. Now, this little ant was in search of a snack, an eastbound ant on a westbound track, looking for a crumb or a nut to crack on the shiny bright rail of the railroad track. And who am I? I'm Switchman Jack, just working my shift in the switchman's shack. I switch the trains from track to track as east goes west and forth goes back. I just settled down with my brown lunch sack, napkins spread, and my lunch unpacked when I spied an ant on a railroad track, hungry, hunting, tickety-tack. Now, an eastbound ant will run right smack into a westbound train on a westbound track if the switchman working the switchman's shack doesn't switch that ant to a different track. Just then a sound, I was taken aback, my ears filled not with the tickety-tack, but a clear as crystal clickety-clack. That's the sound of the train coming down the track. And on the horizon, sure as shellac, was a freight train freighting down the track, heading straight for the ant walking tickety-tack, 10 tons of iron, coal pitch black. Now, what to do? Think quick, think, Jack, before the train and the ant go whack. So I grabbed that switch and I dropped my sack, and I pulled with my arms and I pulled with my back. But the train kept coming towards my shack. The deal was raw. The deck was stacked. The ant kept walking tickety-tack, straight towards the train on the railroad track. Still closer charged the swift smokestack, a huffing, hurling clouds of black, as I pulled and prayed for the strength I lack to switch the switch on the railroad track. The switch was stuck, oh, ruined a rack. This cold steel wheels would soon attack that wrong way ant on the wrong way track, just out searching for a snack. Then, just before that awful smack, that ant turned off the railroad track. He made a beeline for my brown lunch sack as the train whooshed by, screaming clickety-clack. Saved, uncrushed, alive, off track. an ant-sized pat on the back, for poise and presence and the neck, for sniffing out the switchman's snack. So we lunched together, Ant and Jack. The end.
Ready to make those anthill cookies? Let's do it!
Cooking project time. Here's the recipe for anthill cookies. Take a screenshot, print it out.
All right, let's get started with our dry ingredients. There's a lot on the table here. We have a lot of things to add to these cookies. We're gonna start with 2 cups of my oats. Now it does say quick cooking oats. I don't actually have quick cooking oats, so I'm just gonna use regular oats. It'll be a little chewier, but that's fine. If you have the quick stuff, that's probably better, but ooh, I have just enough. I'm gonna do my 2 cups right like that. Next, I need 1.5 cups of my whole wheat flour. If you don't have whole wheat, use white, it's fine, everything's fine. I am going to, didn't bring a knife, so I'll use the back of my spoon to make sure I get just enough. Flatten it out, and there's 1. I need 1.5 cups of this. And here's a half. And a half. Next, I need 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, my leavening agent. Gonna scrape it on the top there. There's 1. There's a half. I need 1 teaspoon of my ground cinnamon. Use my same spoon. Hopefully it's not too messy. In that goes. This is getting very pretty. 1/4 teaspoon of my salt. There we go. Smells good. That's what I have so far. Let's stir it up. I should use a whisk, but all I have is a spoon right now, so I'm just gonna go very slowly. Get those dry ingredients mixed up. My final ingredient is my 3/4 cup of brown sugar. So I don't have a 3/4 cup, I have a 1/4 cup. So 1, 2, I need 3 of these. Plop. Plop. Pack it in there to make a little sandcastle. Plop. I'm gonna mix that in too. Gotta be careful since I don't have a whisk to just mix it up without shooting it all over the table. Chop, 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 chop. I gotta chop up those brown sugars. Let's move on. Time for my wet ingredients. I need 1 cup of milk. You could easily make these cookies vegan by eliminating the dairy milk and going with the plant-based milk. I'm going to use the dairy milk. That's what I have. Next, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Now this cool vegetable oil actually has a measuring cup in the top, so that's going to save me having to do some dishes. That's about a 1/4 cup right there. I need a teaspoon of vanilla. That's my cap. And that goes, plop. A little too much, that'll pay. It'll be yummy. My last wet ingredient is some kind of fruit. So like a banana or applesauce. I don't have applesauce, I'm gonna do a banana. And a 1/2 cup isn't very much, so it's probably gonna be like half of this banana, I'm guessing. So I'm gonna take a little more than half this banana. No, I think I'm gonna use a whole banana. It would definitely be easier to use applesauce, but I don't have any. So I'm just gonna mash this up. And then I'm gonna plop it in. Plop. I did find my whisk, so I'm just gonna whisk it around. Our last step, as you can probably guess, is to take my wet ingredients, put them into my dry ingredients. You'll notice I don't have an electric mixer. Don't really need one. I don't want these to be mixed up too much, just enough that they're combined. So I'm just gonna stir this gently. And I think if I use my whisk, it might get clogged. So I'm just gonna use my big wood spoon and mix it until it's moistened. Now I'm gonna take my 1/4 scooper and I'm gonna plop my little ant hills onto my tray. Plop. up. You can see it is a very soft cookie. I filled my tray here with 12 cookies and I still have a lot of batter left, so I could see easily getting 24 cookies out of this. But they're not done yet. They don't have any ants on them. That's when this stuff comes into play. I've got raisins, mini chocolate chips. You could use big chocolate chips, or I've got sprinkles, depending on what you like. I think the little sprinkles might look like ants if you spread them around a little bit. Yeah, they kind of do. Or if you want a chewy or something, you could pretend these raisins are your ants. They're a little bigger. Or you can use your chocolate chips, mini or regular size ones. Actually, depends on what you want to eat. Or you could do all of them. Wouldn't that be fun? So I think I'm going to do some chocolate chips there. I'll do some sprinkles here. And the rest of them I'll do some raisins. Kind of a nice variety. Okay, they're ready to go in the oven at 350 degrees for 15 to 17 minutes. These are supposed to be a soft cookie, so don't overbake them. And you're going to need to let them cool for a bit before you try them out. Let's do it. Okay, they're done. They look really good and they smell really good. I gotta say, the sprinkles kind of melted a little bit. So they're there, but kind of tiny. I think the chocolate chips and the raisins did the best. So like, here you can look at this one. This one's got chocolate chips and raisins on it. They look like little ants up there. Should we taste them? They smell good. You can see they're just lightly brown on the bottom and they're very chewy. Ooh. Chocolate's melted. They're tasty. Even though that oatmeal was not the instant oatmeal, turned out fine. Totally. Give this one a thumbs up.
Our project time.
Here are the items you're going to need to make your anthill hat. You're going to need 2 pieces of brown paper. That's going to be your dirt. So if you don't have brown, you could choose white and color it, or I don't know, maybe your dirt's going to be purple. You're going to have some grass on top. That's what I took the green for, so 1 sheet of green. Got some markers for some coloring. I got a Sharpie possibly for making ants, but the way I really want to make ants is with some black paint. And I was going to dot them with a Q-tip, but if you don't have paint or Q-tips, you can just use markers, or pencils for that matter, or crayons. I've got 2 different kinds of glue. I've got a liquid glue, which I have here in this dish some rice. The white rice is going to be my ant eggs. So in order to make those stick, I need this kind of glue. If you're not going to do those, if you're going to use paper or something instead, then probably just a glue stick is going to be fine. And then a scissors to cut it, tape to put it back on. If you don't have tape or you don't want to use tape, you can use a stapler for that part. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is create the band of my hat. So the easiest way to do that is take the paper the long way and fold it, put a crease down the middle. Okay, and we're going to cut that line. Okay, that's pretty wide, so I'm going to fold it again, just one of them. Push, 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 so that I get that. And now I'm going to cut it again. And when I tape these 2 ends together, leave a little bit of an overlap. It should be long enough to fit around my head. It is. Now if it's not, you're going to need to cut this one again, fold it, and cut another strip to make sure it fits your head. But mine fits, so let's move on. I am also going to make now a mound of dirt. Remember that the anthill sticks out of the ground, the kind I have in my backyard, is like a big mound of sand. So, and it's not just one, so I'm going to need a few of them. I'm going to use this piece that was left over to kind of cut a lumpy, bumpy mound of dirt. And maybe I'm going to curve it and cut a smaller lumpy, bumpy mound of dirt so that it looks like that. I'm going to glue this onto my headband. I'm going to glue it right where the seam meets so that the glue will help keep that in place. Now I do want it to stick up, so I'm not going to glue it all the way down like this. I'm just going to glue it kind of enough on the top edge, about halfway, to get a good seal. So the way I'm going to do that is just take my glue stick, make a nice thick line on there, zoop, zoop, and stick it on there, press it down so that I have something that looks like that. Next, I'm going to create some grass, some lawn for this. To do that, I only need a thin strip. So I'm going to take my big piece of green and about as long as maybe half my finger and just kind of wiggly cut it. If you cut in a straight line, that's fine too. I'm just going to wiggly cut it a little bit. Basically just to cut it the whole length like that. And then if you want to go to level 2, you can make little snips, not all the way through, but all the way down it so that it kind of looks like grass when I fluff it up, see? Okay, I have my 2 strips, and I'm gonna put those on my hat right now, on the top of my dirt. Now, the way I want this to look is I want this brown strip that's gonna be my headband, that's gonna be like the underground part. And this hill that's sticking up, that's above ground. So my grass is going to be kind of like this, okay? Just like that. So I can still see the top of the anthill, but I can also see underground, like that. So I'm gonna glue that down with my glue stick. Again, I'm gonna make a line right across the top of my headband. And I'm gonna glue down my grass. Make sure you don't glue the part that's like fuzzy like this. Glue the bottom part. So that it looks like that. And I can fluff my grass up a little bit because I didn't put glue where the grass is. This is what I have so far. It's looking pretty good. I've got my anthill sticking above my grass, and then I've got this strip of dirt underneath my grass. Now I need to make my ant tunnels, and I need to add my ants. So here's my big hill. I'm gonna color a circle on the top. That's where my ants are gonna go in. Same with here. Another hole. And I might even draw a line that wiggles down there. That's like the little road going into the anthill. Now down in here, I'm gonna make some rooms. They're gonna be circles. Those are the different rooms of my anthill under the ground. And those rooms have to be connected to each other. So I'm gonna make roads that go between them. Maybe this one is a tiny room. You can see all my roads under here. The anthill's got lots of little rooms in it, and they do different things. This room over here, I'm gonna make that where they store their food. So I'm gonna use my markers to just color some food. I've got some red food, and some purple food, and some orange food. I don't know what this stuff is, or yellow food, but there's my food right there. In this chamber, I think I'm gonna put the eggs. So that's where I'm gonna get my glue, and I'm gonna just put a little bit of glue on there. And I'm gonna use some of my rice to sprinkle it on there. Those are where the eggs are. I think this chamber over here is where the queen's gonna be. Now I could use my paint for that, but I think I'll use my Sharpie or a regular marker. That queen ant is really big. So I'm gonna make 3 circles like a sideways snowman and put my 6 legs on there, my antenna. There she is, there's my queen. And she's also got some eggs too, because keep in mind, she's the one laying all the eggs. So I'm gonna put some glue on there too, because that's where the eggs are. Some more eggs and some more rice. Now these other chambers are just gonna have ants walking around. Now you can use your marker for this, or I thought it'd be kind of fun to get some paint and just dot it in. Dot, 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 ant. Dot, 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 dot. Here's my little ants, and they're even on the outside of the anthill, see? I've got little ants everywhere. Once these little circles dry, I can draw little legs on them. They're even gonna be in the grass. Go ahead and add ants to everything. Lots and lots of ants. I've added a lot of ants to my house. I have to let this dry, especially that glue, and then I can add little legs. Now, like I said before, if you don't have a Q-tip and paint, you can certainly just make it with a marker, or maybe you can use a stamp pad and a Q-tip, or you can use this kind of marker, a crayon, but the Q-tip was kind of fun. I'm gonna let this dry and we'll see what we have. Okay, my hat's pretty dry. I think it turned out pretty cool, don't you? Take a look. I got little ants everywhere on my hat. And the little eggs too. I drew little legs on all those little dots I did, and I think it looks pretty good. I've got the hill up here and another tiny hill over here, and I got ants all around. Pretty cool anthill hat, huh? I think so. That is all I have on ants. Now it's time for you to go outside and check around your yard or your school for ants. They're everywhere, and they are busy, 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 busy. Go check out some ants. Make sure you wear your super cool anthill hat while you're doing it. Ants are cool. And science is cool.